Let's continue talking about the fallout of Jeremy Sochan getting waived, and should the Spurs dip into the waiver wire pool?
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Happy Friday. Welcome back to Locked On Spurs. We're here on the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Ken's 5 San Antonio. Glad to have y'all back. Hope you're having a great day. And as always, we thank y'all for making Locked On Spurs your first and only spot for all things San Antonio Spurs, as well as making the Locked On Spurs Podcast Network #1 in the nation. Today's episode was brought to you by Game Time. You want to download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON. That gets you $20 off your first purchase. What are we talking about today? Well, we're simply talking about Jeremy Sochan getting waived, kind of the fallout of that. We didn't really get too much into it last night in last night's show, but we're going to get into what went wrong. Was it simple, maybe just a shifting of the card? A pop in, Mitch in, pop out, Mitch in. Is that an issue? Did he fit? And also, what about the waiver, the buyout market? Should the Spurs keep an eye on that? Should they look to somebody to add to the roster? Right now, the roster stands at 17. So we shall see what they do. Let's go to bring in our guest, everybody. He is back to close out the week here on Locked On Spurs, Mr. Hector Ledesma, with clutch points as well as Spurs Sports Entertainment. Hector, what's up, buddy?
¿Qué pasó, Jeff? How are you, my guy?
I am dealing with a cold, man. I getting my butt kicked over here.
Yeah, those aren't fun.
Not fun at all.
My little one had the flu last week. I was able to escape. Well, knock on wood. To this
Yeah,
point.
I hope you don't. Yeah.
But I think I forget what like the period is of when you're most. I think it's when you're showing symptoms at the beginning, when you're most you're most contagious.
Yeah.
I'm past that point, so we'll see if I let's see if it gets me or not.
I wish nobody this right now. This has been the most painful 2-3 days I've been dealing with. And it's always at night. It's always at night when it wants to make its appearance felt. And that's why I don't want it to make its appearance felt. But hey, I'm back. I'm tanked up on meds right now, everybody. We're good to go. Let's go to dive into this. We're still kind of feeling the effects. Everybody's still talking about Jeremy Sochan getting waived by the Spurs. Initially, Hector, when the news came out, I wasn't surprised. I mean, the writing was on the wall since literally day one of the season. He wasn't playing at all. And in that Laker game where they were just manhandling, destroying the Lakers, not a single second. Bismack got in there. Who was Jordan McLaughlin got in there? Like, pretty good minutes. But Mitch Johnson kept Jeremy Sochan stapled to the bench. I think that's what sealed it for them. What was your reaction to it when Sohan got waived?
Same as you, and probably same as everybody. Not shocked, but I will say, Jeff, maybe a little bit surprised. If for no other, Suns are thought to be one of the teams that are interested in him, right? You know that there's going to be some other Western contenders that are at least going to take a look. It might be just a glance. It might just be a 1 second look. But the thought of him going to another team that could match up with the Spurs down the line, and by down the line, I mean once the playoffs come around, that was the only thing that I thought, well, maybe, just maybe, because the Spurs have always done right by guys, right? Hey, let's find you a new home if you don't have a home here. So they'll try to work a trade. But really, one of the things they haven't had to face is, well, what if said guy goes to a contender and can hurt us down the line? I think that element was kind of there with Sohan, kind of like, okay, well, how much can he really hurt us? How good can he really be? That might be what some of you watching are thinking. Like, come on now, he's not going to go in and score 25 a night for anybody else. No, but he's a guy, that the hustle plays, the rebounds, the good defense. You put in spurts, he can help a contender. And that'd be the kind of the worst thing, right? You're in a playoff series against whomever. Again, the Suns are said to be interested. And he comes in and he plays good defense in spurts, and he kind of helps Phoenix in a win or two over the Spurs. That's kind of the nightmare scenario, if you will, or the worst case scenario, if you will. So because of that, I thought maybe, just maybe, they hang on to him. But at the end of the day, every arrow or most of them pointed in the direction of they're going to part ways since they weren't able to trade.
And you're absolutely right. I mean, there was a report that came out that the Spurs allowed Sohan and his team to go ahead and look for a deal ahead of the trade deadline. I mean, that's another arrow that pointed to they were ready to just part ways. So for me, again, I was not too surprised. The only thing I was surprised about is that I was hoping the Spurs would have gotten a deal done, even if it's a second round pick, just something, get something for a guy that technically was a top 10 pick in 2022. And the Spurs are left with nothing. I mean, you weren't going to get a haul. You weren't going to get like some massive haul. At least get something, maybe a shooter, a guy that can knock down a long ball, or do just something to help the team. But now the Spurs don't get anything. Now, do you think this was simply a shifting of the guard? Because under Popovich, Sohan played hell of minutes, just tons of minutes. Under Mitch, obviously, he wasn't playing 1 second, career low in minutes per game. Do you think the shift in coaching may have played a big part in this?
Not nearly as big as two other factors, I think, Jeff. Number one, the team's just better than it has been the last 3 years that Sohan's been here, right? And that's a duh, right? We know that.
Yeah.
But under that umbrella, and so because of that, fewer minutes for Sohan, right? They have more options now. Dylan Harper's now there. Carter Bryant is kind of filling the Sohan role, if you will. They added Kornet. Remember, Sohan kind of was the 4 for a lot of last year next to Wemby. The 4 as much as there can be a 4 in today's NBA. So that's the umbrella. Underneath that, Sohan just didn't improve enough. He didn't. What was he going to do for you out there? The greatest appeal to Jeremy Sochan this whole time was he's versatile, right? He does a lot of things well. He's athletic, and he's the kind of guy you want to have in today's NBA. But he didn't do anything extremely well. And so because of that, he kind of fell out of the rotation as they added more guys and as they added more talent. I mean, think about how different the roster is from just late January of last year. De'Aaron Fox is now there. Dylan Harper's now there. Luke Kornet's now there. Carter Bryant's now there. Kelly Olynyk's now there. Stephon Castle's that much better. Yeah. Julian Champagnie is that much better. So they're just, where were the minutes going to come from? And I think for a guy who didn't do enough, really, let's be honest, from the get-go, I mean, he had flashes his rookie year, that career-high 33-point game that first year. He showed flashes, and in spurts, he was very good in certain roles, but overall, he just wasn't going to see the floor. And I think, well, let me rephrase that. That was his reality, right? He wasn't seeing the floor. But the question kept coming back to how? Like, in what way was he going to see the floor? Who were you going to sit for Sohan to play? Now, some people might say Harrison Barnes struggled there for a while. Well, given the other options and given that you kind of know, and he's been playing better lately, that Barnes was eventually going to snap out of that funk. Yes, again, where were those minutes going to come from? And I think that ultimately, Jeff, is the team is much better, and he really never did anything that we know of. Granted, he didn't get a whole lot of minutes, so there's a certain amount of trust you have to put in the coaching staff. Combine what you did see when he was out there, there just wasn't a path into how he was going to make the rotation.
Yeah, the cards were stacked against him. And he started the season on the IR. That didn't help at all.
Right.
At all. Fell out of the rotation quick. Not through his fault. He wanted to represent Team Poland, and things happen. So you start off the year in the IR. The Spurs come out of the gates on fire. 5-0 start, just really wrecking shop, and then continuing the hot play. And then I think one of the bigger reasons why, what you just said right now, he doesn't really give you much offensively. He didn't spread the floor. That shot, and he had 3-4 years to get that shot to get better. If he had just developed a small, tiny, mid-range little pop shot, that would have probably helped him tremendously.
Yeah,
but he couldn't even do that. So he moves on, and the Spurs will move on. And I think this is for me, this is probably one of the biggest reasons why he's gone, is that guy on your screen right there, Carter Bryant. The Winter Games are officially here, and if you're anything like us, you're locking in for events you want to get to see on the big stage every 4 years. And that's why following the Winter Games on FanDuel just makes sense. From medal counts to individual events to finding your angle on the sports you care most about, FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected on the action. The drama of curling machines that start slow and somehow get intense, fast, speed, ice skating, races between just decided by inches, hockey games that feel different right from the opening faceoff. Every niche event becomes much watch when you're fully locked into the competition. FanDuel keeps the entire Olympic experience engaging from start to finish. The Winter Games are on, and there's no better way to follow them than with FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. Let's talk about Indeed. Hiring isn't just about finding someone willing to take the job. It's about finding the right person with the right background who can actually help your business moving forward. If you want candidates who match what you're looking for, Indeed sponsored jobs is the move. Because instead of hoping the right person stumbles across your post, Indeed helps you match with quality candidates by boosting your job listing to the people who fit your specific criteria, like skills, certifications, and location. If I'm hiring, I wouldn't want just someone who can help. I want someone with real experience who can jump right in. That's what I like about Indeed. You can get specific and target exactly what you need. It saves time because you're spending less energy sorting through mismatches. And with sponsored jobs, your post gets seen by candidates who are actually a fit. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of the show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help your job on the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. Thank you for making Locked On Spurs your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. If you haven't already, go check out our new Everydayer Club. Access to ad-free audio feed for Locked On Spurs, compatible with Apple's Podcasts, Spotify, and every other major podcast app. An invite to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat for just listeners of this show and, well, hanging out with a lot of other fans on Discord. You want to go to this website right now, lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer club. Go there right now, or just tap the link in the show notes to learn more.
Yep.
That's probably the biggest reason, one of the big reasons right there. Carter Bryant is exactly what they were hoping that Sohan would be. But they got him now, and it's that kid right there, number 11. And they are fully invested in Carter Bryant. They believe in him. They're obviously giving him minutes over a veteran like Sohan before he got waived. He does a lot more than what Sohan has done in his career with San Antonio. So, yeah. But, the other thing that got me thinking too, Hector, is you're looking back at that 2022 draft class with the Spurs. Sohan's gone, Malachi's gone, and Blake Wesley's gone.
Yeah.
Looking back, was that kind of a busted draft class for the Spurs?
Well, there's no doubt. You can take out kind of. And I wrote about this at Clutch Points shortly after the news. It is an awful draft class in the end. Now, in the end, the fact that they got Wemby is going to cover up a lot of mistakes.
Yes, it is.
But not only 2022, 2021 with the Josh Primo debacle. 2019 got the Spurs Keldon Johnson, but remember who they picked before Keldon Johnson?
Oh, yeah, I remember that guy.
That was a disaster. You go back to the years before and, Lonnie Walker and things along those lines. And so the Spurs have Wemby and then now give them credit here. And I don't want to make it sound like, hey, because we all know their draft pedigree throughout their history, right? Getting Tony Parker, getting Manu, getting Kawhi, when they did, or trading for Kawhi,
trading for him,
for them, when they did. So it's not like they have to be defended as, oh my goodness, they just went through a really rough stretch there. More recently, yes, they didn't have to do much work for Wemby and Dylan Harper. That's fair. But when Stephon Castle went, it's easy to forget now, but 3 teams passed on Steph.
Yes, they did. Yeah.
And you look back at that now and you go, okay, but with Steph, with Dylan, what we project he's going to be, and with Wemby, you add the De'Aaron Fox. Devin's done a fantastic job in this role. That is his new role. Keldon Johnson's done a fantastic job in this new role. The pieces that they have kind of alleviated and kind of relieved how bad those drafts were. But the long way of answering your question is yes, that 2022 draft is terrible, especially when you include the fact that they had 3 cracks in the first round. And remember, go back to that. They wanted to move. They didn't want all 3 selections.
That's right.
Certain.
That's right.
To make a move, they just couldn't find the right move or one that they liked. So they ended up with all 3 draft picks. And less than 4 years later, all 3 of them are gone.
You look at some of the names that are on the board after, when the Spurs were on the clock at number 9. It's just amazing. Jalen Williams was there. Jalen Duren was on the board at the 13 to the Hornets at that time. Yep, pretty much. Yeah, Jalen Williams, Duren, Tari Eason was on the board.
Walker Kessler was there too, right?
Yes, sir. Walker Kessler was there. He went 22 to Memphis, and then he got traded.
They had 2 shots because they took at Kessler because they took Branham at 20. Yep.
I mean, my goodness, and the Spurs definitely could have got a night. I mean, the Jay Williams one would have been just.
But to that point, Jeff, like you can't play the what if game without taking all what ifs into account, right? And that's the beautiful thing about the theory, the butterfly effect, right?
Yeah.
Like if you have Jalen Williams and Walker Kessler, and the year before when they drafted Josh Primo, let's say you end up with Jalen Johnson instead, you draft Jalen Johnson. Or you draft Şengün instead. With any number of those guys, are they bad along with DeJounte in the mix at that point or around that general time frame? That was right around the time when they got rid of Derek White. Oh, that general mix, are they bad enough in 2022, 2023 to eventually get Wemby? You know what I'm saying? Yes, they could have still made plans and still kind of tried, but you're doing it with the better team as opposed to what they ended up doing, which was sell everybody, DeJounte, Derek White, get rid of everybody, Pirtle, everybody, to where you're left legitimately with a glorified G League squad, Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, and a G League squad essentially. And it's a lot easier to work your way into a guy like Wemby, which is what ended up happening. So, and I wrote this, both these can be true. They set themselves up beautifully for Wemby. They really did. But they needed luck in order to get Wemby, not to mention, it's not like they went into 21 and 2022 drafts and said, let's see how we can screw this up so that we can get Wembanyama. That wasn't the plan, so both these could be true at the same time.
I think the Spurs in the Wemby draft, they still didn't have the top odds, right?
No, they finished with the second worst record in the league.
That's right. Yeah.
Houston, and then through the system, Houston actually technically had better odds than they did. At pick. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just interesting, Sohan, got colorful hair, colorful personality. And look, it's not like the Spurs tried to make it work. It's not. They tried the point guard experiment. That obviously didn't work. They gave him some minutes under Popovich. It kind of worked, but he was a good player on a really bad teams.
Right.
Yeah. Right. He was just a really good player on bad teams. Now you have a good team. How does he fit? And he didn't fit at all. That's why I go back to what I said earlier. If he had just learned to do a little pop shot, mid-range shot, something, I think that would have helped him a lot. But he's kind of like this like puzzle, because when you would look at the stat sheets when he was getting minutes, he would give you 8-6 points here, 5-6 rebounds, 2-3-4 assists here. He gives you a little bit of everything, and that's valuable and that's good. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena, the crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that always hasn't been that simple. That's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. It puts the advantage back to where it belongs, with the fans. Pull up the Game Time app. You'll be able to pick an upcoming NBA game and get tickets locked in within minutes. You'll love seeing the all-in price up front, no surprise fees at checkout. Being able to see the view from their seat before buying makes that decision so much easy. You get zone deals. They stand out. You can be able to choose a section. Game Time will pick the seats and you save. Great last minute options too, with NBA tickets showing up at solid prices. Everything feels quick, intuitive, stress-free, and from start to finish. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON. That'll get you $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. And remember, it's gametime.co, not .com. But in this current Spurs team, they needed more, and he just couldn't bring that at all.
Well,
I don't know if I know you said it probably didn't. I think I heard you correctly when I asked you think it's just a shifting of the guard from Pop to Mitch. I think Mitch's style probably didn't. He didn't see Sohan fit into what he wanted to put out on the court.
Yeah, that's part of it too. And to go back, if we're just talking all things Sohan, right? Like, yeah. I remember at the time, his rookie year, and then his second year, once they added Wemby, I remember thinking, when you draft in the top 10, and maybe, Jeff, maybe this is archaic thinking on my end, but I think it's not. I think it's just general across the board. You get a top 10 guy, you're hoping, like with percentages being heavy on your side, that he's going to be a dominant, high impact guy, right? Yes. Like that's what you need with a top 10 pick. There's a reason that teams want to get into the lottery and tank once they know that they're not making the playoffs, right? Like, sure. You want a guy in the top 5 and the top 10 because those are your game changers. To me, Sohan always seemed like your typical Spurs pick from when they were winning those titles during those 2.5 decades or those 2 decades, right? Somebody you get late first round, like that kind of an impact guy. Like he does a lot of things well. He's a puzzle piece. You don't need him to score 25. You don't need him to get 15 rebounds. You don't need to be a lockdown defender, that type of guy. No, when you pick in the top 10, you want a guy who's any or all of those things. Yes. Right? And he wasn't any of them. And so that skill set stayed the same, and none of either one of those skills and his skill set ever blossomed into something that made you go, oh, like for example, he could have found the niche as an outstanding rebounder because we've seen over the last couple of years, the Spurs have been hurt on the glass, especially the offensive glass, time and time again. Had he been almost like, and you're showing the picture right now, I don't say this just because of the number, and I know these are lofty type things, but had he been a Dennis Rodman type guy who comes in, cleans the glass, just a defensive menace, like not just, hey, he's a very good perimeter defender who can bother the opposing team's best player. No, a lockdown defender, just puts the guy under wraps, and on the boards, just, my goodness, gobbles up everything that needs to be gobbled up so that Wemby doesn't have to be, down there every single time. Apologies for the dogs there, Jeff.
It's all right.
Had he been that kind of guy, he would have found the niche. I think even on this team, he could have found the niche. But the rebounding, well, that was alleviated a little bit with bringing Kornet in. And you see some of the other guys, Bryant's, Steph and Dylan are good rebounding guards. And then defensively, Stephon Castle is your that's in terms of what I was just talking about, a lockdown defender. That's what Steph is becoming, right? So now he had no place within this current group.
Yeah. It's interesting to see, how it all unfolded, and it's a shame it didn't work out. But you're right. If he had just got one thing and just did one thing that dominant, that probably could have saved him under Mitch's watch. Mitch would have been forced to throw him out there, put him out to give him heavy minutes. But he
make the coaches play you. Like, don't even leave it up to him. Make him play you with how good you are, how valuable you are. And just didn't do that.
Well, now that Sohan is waived, the roster now stands at 17. And the Spurs could maybe add a player here or there. Just kind of a generic overview question right here. Do you think they should dip into the buyout market right now? Should they be looking at that direction? Or maybe just in the backyard, just call up some guy from the Austin team? Because the way they're playing right now, yes, the shooting is still an issue. It's a bad issue. But do you think they should be looking in that direction now, Hector?
Yeah, I think shooting and rebounding are their two biggest points.
Okay.
So I think the same thing that kept them from doing the Jeremy trade might keep them from picking up a guy on the buyout market. What's his contract look like? That's going to be key, because the Spurs don't want to take on any contracts that aren't expiring or that, they don't want anything on the books. And so I think they're going to evaluate and look at it and say, what's the cost benefit here? Because with Jeremy, I think they're all things being equal, I think there was at least one offer they liked. They didn't like the contract situation that we're going to be taking back, though. That's what prevented the move. Will that go into play again with the buyout acquisition, if there is one? And so I think that's the thing to look out for, Jeff. But yes, I think in general, if we're just everything's on the table and we don't have to worry about anything else, they could stand to your point, add a shooter or add a rebounder, somebody who's really, really effective on the glass. I think if they don't, it's a missed opportunity in the sense that they need to improve in those areas. But maybe it's not a missed opportunity in terms of, well, let's roll with the guys we've got, because it's not supposed to be a championship season anyway. So let's roll with the guys that we got, and then we have that much more cap flexibility in the summer.
And I think I'm with you. I think they should be looking at the buyout market. But what makes me think, like, if it ain't broke, why fix it? I mean, they're playing great right now. 6-game winning streak. They had to claw back from Golden State, but they got the win. They throttled the Lakers the way they should have. It was great. And going into the All-Star break on a high right now. We got a nice chunk of days off from majority of the team just to rest before they resume against Phoenix. Why fix why add to what's not broken? I mean, this team is humming right now. Unless you really think those two things, rebounding and just shooting, is going to haunt them come playoffs or playoff positioning time. You think it'll haunt them?
They might when the game slows down.
Yeah,
those things might. I may be crazy for thinking this, but everybody remembers the NBA Cup final against the Knicks, right?
Yes.
Everybody remembers that game. Watching that fourth quarter and the way the Spurs lost that lead.
I remember that, yes.
And the Knicks slowed the game down.
Yes, they did.
They turned into a half-court affair. They were kind of the first team to kind of body Vic.
Yep.
Or at least the first in this.
Yeah, I remember Mitchell Robinson was just really bodying.
Yes, Mitchell Robinson would. Yes, exactly. That's what we're going to see in the playoffs. And the fact that the Spurs didn't fare so well. Now, again, that was about a month and a half ago now, because it was right before Christmas. So going on 2 months since then. So, and we still got 2 months to go to the playoffs. But that is what the postseason is going to look like. And so if you can extrapolate from that, go forward without the Spurs really adding shooting and rebounding, if that ends up being the case, it gives you reason to pause and go, eh. So I think that's the way I kind of look at it right now.
Well, there's not many names right now on the buyer market that make you salivate and want to go get this person. You ain't gonna go for Eric Gordon, that's for sure. I don't know how many years he's got left. Yeah.
Eric Gordon.
Honestly,
I think Eric Gordon might be older than Tim and Manu. No
way. I can't believe he's still playing. If you want just a beefy dude out there, there's Mason Plumlee, shooting. Dario Saric is there. But yeah, I mean, nothing really that jumps out at you. I think I can see them looking into the backyard of the Austin Spurs. There's some guys out there that are playing really, really well out there. You know what is interesting is when it comes up with the shooting thing, just scoring offense. I wonder how much David Jones Garcia would have helped if he didn't get hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he could have helped.
He was pretty much of the two-way guys, he was the one that was most up here. Like he was the one that was most, and not only that, but most was going to get minutes. But that's the thing, Jeff. Like if because I think I don't have percentages in front of me, but would you agree that and maybe this is just kind of niche, like Champagnie, Julian's their best shooter, right?
Yes, he is.
Okay. I don't know if the president's percentages bear that out. Whatever, he might be under Vic, he might be under De'Aaron, but he's their best 3-point shooter. Keldon has been great from beyond the 3-point line all season long. So they've been able to get away with another shooter because of Keldon and through the first 2 months of the season because of Harrison. If Harrison and Keldon go back to where they were pre-Christmas, and that's kind of the way they finish things out, and Julian stays Julian, they probably have enough shooting, even when the game slows down, to go deep. And that's assuming that everybody else continues to shoot at the clip that they've been shooting, right? De'Aaron, Steph, Dylan, Dev, But if Keldon and Harrison, in Harrison's case again, if they fall off, I think that's when you're gonna say, that's when a low seed in the first round has the potential to make a threat, to push them a little bit. Right. So that's, but and to go back to what we're talking about, that's the current construct. We have to have that conversation because that's where they are with shooting, with the lack of another marksman type guy.
It's funny, Hector, this is something that we've been talking about even before the season started, how shooting or lack thereof was still going to be an issue. And here we are, it's still an issue. What's been saving their butts is just that defense. Statistically,
defense too.
Yeah, the defense is just saving them. I mean, just saving them when their offense is bad. Wasn't it too long ago where collectively they couldn't buy a bucket? Their offense just stunk.
Yeah.
But it was their defense that was keeping them in it. So if they can find that balance, I think that'd be great. But by the way, to answer your question, Wemby or Champagnie, it's Champagnie by a hair.
Yeah.
It's Victor is 36.3% shooting from the field, and the 3-line, excuse me. And Julian, I got it here, 36.9. So
yeah,
there you have it. It's close, super close. But yeah, I definitely think they need to address shooting and rebounding. There's potentially some guys out there that waiver wire. When I look at the Austin team, I know I said earlier there's some guys out there that play really well, but I don't know if they can. Well, the thing is that whoever's going to fill that roster spot, they got to understand that they're not going to be getting a lot of minutes at all. They're basically going to be, unless something comes up where they need to throw them in there, injuries or out,
or unless they do land that marksman, Jeff. Unless it's somebody under the radar that we're not thinking about, and they sign him, they pick him up, and you're like, okay,
yeah.
And that guy kind of ends up being he ends up being able to fill a niche. That in that scenario, I think he'd get, or likewise somebody who is just a banger on the boards. I think they could really use that. In today's NBA, for the most part, you really can't get away with playing 4-on-5 anymore. Like everybody on your team's going to be able to score. But with that being said, the reality is all 5 guys you have on the court aren't offensive aces.
Yeah.
Like I think we've deluded ourselves into thinking 5 best players that are all versatile. Well, yeah, versatility doesn't mean you're an outstanding scorer or an outstanding shooter, though. So long as the banger or the great rebounder gives you enough offense, you can get by, and so that's going to be key too. So we'll see how they decide to fill that final roster spot.
Absolutely. He is Mr. Hector Ledesma with Clutch Points and Spurs Sports and Entertainment. It does work for them from time to time. Hector, you talked about the article you wrote about the 2022 draft class for the Spurs. What else you got cooking?
Same with them. Same with that Clutch Points. Do reports. I'd say with them. Along those lines, similar stories. Jeff, Spurs heading into the All-Star break, kind of looking back at the first half. It's funny, we call it the first half of the season, but they play.
I know, it's way over. Yeah.
Looking back at the pre-All-Star portion of the season, kind of projecting ahead. I'll probably do a piece soon here on Keldon and his 6th man of the year outlook.
Ooh, one.
I think he very much is in contention, if not, one of the top 2-3 front runners. Take a look at that. You mentioned the stuff with Spurs Sports Entertainment. Also do Spurs reports weekly, which are on the social media channels as well as YouTube. And so those, and then news updates. On the Keller inside. So, still busy with baseball and softball, as well as track, now taking into account here with this great season. Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, should Julian have been invited to the 3-point shootout?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But honestly, Jeff, I say that without knowing the 3-point field. I say it.
I looked it up. Now I went head to head. So Julian versus the field. So whoever was invited, like Damian Lillard and whatnot, and Jamal Murray, he was right there with them. He was about 1 or 2 percentage points away. Like for example, Julian was 37% in all his matches against Dame Lillard, and Lillard was about like 37.8%.
Okay.
So he was kind of there with them. So I think he should have been, but you're going to have multiple all-stars for the big game. At least you can invite a lot of Spurs to a lot of events. And they almost did, until David Jones Garcia got hurt and whatnot. But yeah, I think Julian should have gone there. But look what all you got to look forward to from Hector Ledesma over there at Clutch Points. Hey, by the way, make sure to follow him on X at Hector Ledesma TV. Hector, we appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to join us here on Locked On Spurs. Always welcome here, buddy. Just let me know. We'll put you on this nice little screen here. Thank you again, Hector. I appreciate it. Everybody else, we thank y'all for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. Free and available wherever you get podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, Cansify Plus app, YouTube. You know what to do. Go subscribe right now. We definitely appreciate it. Hey, before we let you go, check out the NBA. Pretty much, there's something you really want to go to. It's called the Everydayer Club here at the Locked On Podcast Network. So what is that? So you get yourself ad-free episodes of Locked On Spurs, right? You get access to a Discord channel, which is free. You get to hang out with other Spurs fans. Sign up today at lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer club. Do that right now. We'll be back next week as the Spurs are on break, but we'll definitely keep you up what's going on with the silver and black. So for Mr. Hector Ledesma, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.